Hi, Andy Backus from LongRangeHunting.com and the Long Range Hunting Store. Today I'm going to do a video explaining the differences between the different models of Atlas Bipod. I get quite a few calls from folks who are a little confused on the pros and cons of the different models, so I want to kind of clear that up here. The bipod I've got on my gun right now is the V8 version BT10 bipod. The V8 means it's one of Atlas's original bipods, and the BT10 without the letters LW17 after it means that it doesn't have the quick release mounting bracket built into it. Instead, it's got a couple of bolts using a flathead screwdriver to take it on and off. I personally love the LW17 quick release mechanism. It's one of the main things I like about the Atlas system. As a hunter, now, because of the quick release mechanism and having a small Picatinny rail mounted to the front of my gun, I'm able to carry the bipod around in my backpack or in a pocket and carry my gun without the bipod on it. If I'm lucky enough to have a great prone shooting position, I'll pull the bipod out and quickly attach it. But for someone that doesn't need that quick release mechanism and wants to save the money, the BT10 version without the quick release mechanism is just fine. It's pretty easy to take on and off with the two bolts, not a huge negative. The BT10 and the BT10 LW17, other than that quick release mechanism, are the same as each other in every other way. And I'll start by talking about the features that are also the same as the newer PSR bipod models. This BT10 is the standard height bipod, so it's 4 3/4 inches to 9 inch. It's got really nice leg length adjustment. From my shooting position, I can reach forward and adjust the legs in little 1-inch increments or so, quickly, pretty quietly. This standard height for me is perfect for most of my prone shooting. I've got kind of a small to medium sized rear shooting bag here, and for me, this height is just right for prone shooting. I can extend the legs to get over taller grass. I can extend the legs for a upward angle shot. There's an up angle shot. Shooting over taller grass, I'd run my bag the tall way. Maybe that's still not quite tall enough. I'd use my fist in there to get a little extra height. If I needed to get even more height than this, they do sell a 3-inch leg extension. You unplug the rubber feet from the bottom of the bipod and add the 3-inch extensions and add the feet on the bottom. And now I've got even more height if I need it. So that's a nice option to have. But I typically don't carry the 3-inch extensions. I find this standard height to be just right for most of my shooting. Other features on the bipod are really nice mechanism for rotating the legs forward and back, and a few different angled positions that allow me to work with uneven terrain or unusual shooting positions where I need to maybe have the bipod legs rotated forward and pushing against some sort of an obstacle. It's still nice and solid and gives me some good flexibility there. Another key feature of all the bipods is the ability to cant the rifle to get your reticle perfectly level. There's a tension adjustment for the cant. You could crank it down and lock it in. What I do is have it set at just the right amount of tension so I can move it, cant it from side to side, but it has a little bit of pressure so it's not a sloppy, loose feeling. And once I get to my perfect setting, I can leave it there and know that it's going to stay. You can also pan, and that tension adjustment adjusts that pan as well. So overall, really nice mechanisms to make all the adjustments that I need to make as a shooter. Now, the BT10 and BT10 LW17 have two features or two characteristics that are different than the new PSR versions. One of them I feel is pretty important, and the other one to me is less important. I'll start with the really important one. On the BT10 and the BT10 LW17, if you grab the round legs, they actually are able to rotate. I do most of my shooting outdoors on the ground, and the rotating legs are an absolute non-issue. I don't notice any problems with that whatsoever. Where this can be an issue is shooting off of a real smooth surface, like a bench. And what will actually happen as you go to load forward on your gun and your bipod to get a good consistent load on a real smooth surface, those rubber feet will actually roll forward, and you never really get a good solid stopping point. Obviously that could be a real problem. So for those of you who plan to shoot off of your bipod on a smooth surface like a bench or some concrete, be aware that that can be pretty hard to get a consistent load with those feet rotating forward like that. So that's to me the big deal. The other difference between the new version and the old version is that on the old version, the BT10, when you go to load the bipod, there's a little bit of play where the whole system rotates just a little bit before it hits a solid stopping point, and now we're loaded. Some people say that that's actually a good thing, because when you fire, the recoil is able to rotate the bipod and the gun a little bit and recoil the gun straight back, as opposed to if this was all perfectly solid, they say when the gun recoils, it'll want to rotate up a little bit and cause a little bit of rise to the muzzle. I personally don't feel real strongly one way or the other. I've had good success shooting both versions as far as that goes. So for me, that's not the big difference between the new version and the old version, but the rotating feet for people shooting on a smooth surface is the big deal. I'm going to switch to the BT46 LW17, which is a PSR version, so the new PSR BT46 LW17. And again, I'm using a screwdriver to take this BT10 off because it doesn't have the quick release mechanism. Not a huge deal, but I prefer not to have to carry a screwdriver around when I'm out hunting, and I do like the ability to take it on and off, really quickly. BT46 LW17 looks exactly the same as the BT10 LW17. Again, the only differences are that the legs don't rotate, and when I go to load the bipod, this whole connection is really solid, so there's no kind of rotating forward before I hit the solid stopping point. Instead, it's solid as soon as I start leaning into the gun at all. Again, to me, not a huge deal, but something to be aware of if you have a preference one way or the other. Now I'm going to switch to the PSR BT47 LW17, which is the newer version in the taller height. It's 7 to 13 inch range. So for me to shoot prone with this one on flat ground with, it's set at the lowest height, I've got to have a pretty tall rear bag. I'm on the vertical dimension of this rear bag, and it's not really high enough. I've got a fair amount of space between the rear of my stock and my rear bag. So for me, this is too high for most of my prone shooting. For someone who shoots on a lot of really uneven ground, a lot of angles, a lot of maybe rocky, uneven stuff, maybe there'd be an argument for going with the taller version. But for me, the standard height is great. I'll give you an idea of how high this one is when it's all the way extended. For extreme upward angles, this is great. I've got lots of height to work with. But for shooting on uneven ground, it's not quite high enough, really not even close to being high enough to shoot seated. So it's really a prone shooting bipod. So for me, this is kind of an in-between height. Not tall enough to shoot seated, but a little too tall for shooting prone. So I prefer the standard height personally. Then the last bipod, their newest bipod, is their 5H series, and it's called the BT35 LW17. So LW17 again, meaning that it's got the quick release mechanism, and this is designed for big, heavy recoiling guns where we want a whole bunch more support. It's a totally different mechanism as far as the cant adjustment goes. The leg adjustment mechanism is actually the same. The legs are larger diameter. This one height range is 5.5 inches to 10 inches. Heavier duty legs. The legs don't rotate. Really nice pan feature, really easy to move left to right. There's a tension adjustment here, and then sort of a locking mechanism. So to adjust for cant, you actually kind of slide on this, I guess you'd call it like a fulcrum, and then you could set this so that when we lock the mechanism here, the lever, there's enough tension to still move it, but keep it where you want it, or you can lock it all the way in where it won't move at all. And then again, the height is a good one for prone shooting, and basically just heavier duty, big heavy recoiling guns. Really, really nice machining and high quality item. So hopefully that kind of clears up some of the questions about the differences between the different Atlas Bipod models. You can buy all these Atlas Bipods at the Long Range Hunting store, longrangehunting.com/store. If you have any questions about bipods or any other products, you can give us a call at 920-376-2010. Thanks.